Perhaps you have asked yourself, I am living for God, so why am I struggling financially? You pray, dedicate yourself to Him and follow His will, yet financial struggles persist. In fact, the deeper your faith grows, the greater the financial burdens seem. Why do we face such trials? Why does God allow hardships instead of material abundance for His chosen ones? This is not just a personal question, it's something many believers wrestle with. Even in the Bible, those devoted to God faced financial difficulties. Job lost everything. Paul lived in constant need, and even Jesus Himself did not lead a wealthy life. Could financial struggles be not a sign of failure, but rather a deeper lesson in faith? In this video, we will explore why the chosen ones experience financial hardships, the biblical truths behind these trials, and how these struggles can ultimately lead to blessings. The Bible reveals that even those closest to God were not always wealthy. It wasn't because God didn't love them, but because He had a greater purpose for them. 1. Job, losing everything, receiving greater blessings. Job was a righteous man before God. The Bible describes him as blameless and upright, fearing God and shunning evil. Job 1:1. Yet, Satan challenged God, claiming Job's faith existed only because of his wealth. With God's permission, Job lost everything, his wealth, health, and even his family. His friends accused him of sin, suggesting his suffering was a punishment. However, Job never cursed God. Despite extreme financial ruin, Job remained faithful, and in the end, God restored him with even greater blessings. Job 42:10. This teaches us that God allows trials not to destroy us, but to refine us for even greater things. 2. Paul, prioritizing stewardship over wealth. One of the most influential figures in the New Testament, Paul experienced great financial difficulties. In Philippians 4:12, he says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Paul dedicated his life to spreading the gospel, choosing hardship over comfort. His wealth was never in money, but in fulfilling God's calling. This reflects an important principle. Wealth is not defined by material abundance, but by how we use what God provides according to His purpose. 3. Jesus, a life of poverty, eternal riches. Jesus, the Son of God and Creator of all things, lived humbly. He said in Matthew 8:20, Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay His head. Jesus did not seek financial wealth on earth because His focus was on something greater, fulfilling God's will. His life teaches us that true riches are not found in material possessions, but in following God's purpose. When financial difficulties come, it's easy to wonder if God has abandoned us. However, the Bible teaches that hardships serve a greater purpose. 1. To teach absolute trust in God. Matthew 6:33 says, Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Many misunderstand this verse, thinking that seeking God will automatically bring material wealth. However, the real lesson is learning to trust in God beyond material possessions. Consider how God provided manna for the Israelites in the wilderness. He gave them just enough for each day, teaching them to rely on Him daily rather than hoard resources. Similarly, our financial struggles can be an opportunity to trust in God's provision rather than our own efforts. 2. To keep us focused on God's calling. The greatest servants of God did not pursue wealth. They prioritized their divine calling over financial security. Take Paul, for example. He could have lived a prosperous life, but he chose a path of suffering to spread the gospel. His words in Philippians 4:12 remind us that true fulfillment comes from following God's mission, not from acquiring wealth. 3. To refine our faith through trials. James 1:2-4 teaches that trials develop perseverance, leading to spiritual maturity. Financial difficulties are not punishments, but refining processes. God never promised a life of comfort, but He does promise growth. Just as an athlete must endure training to become stronger, believers must go through hardships to develop a stronger faith. When faced with financial struggles, the first question we ask is, why is this happening to me? Instead, we should ask, What is God teaching me through this? 1. Trust in God's provision. Philippians 4:19 says, "My God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus." However, God's provision does not always come in the way we expect. Just like He provided daily manna to the Israelites, God provides in His perfect timing. Our faith is refined when we trust in His provision, even when our circumstances seem uncertain. 2. Seek God's kingdom. First, Jesus instructed us in Matthew 6:33 to prioritize God's kingdom above material wealth. When we seek God first, we experience spiritual fulfillment and peace that money cannot provide. Wealth may bring temporary comfort, but true peace comes from knowing that God is in control. Those who trust in Him, regardless of their financial situation, live with an unshakable sense of security. 3. Embrace trials as spiritual training. James 1:2-4 reminds us that trials shape our character. Just as athletes train hard to win a competition, our faith grows stronger through hardships. Paul endured both hunger and abundance, but learned to be content in all situations. We too must learn to embrace financial trials as opportunities to grow in faith, gratitude, and trust in God's plan. Financial hardships can feel like a sign of God's absence, but they are often part of His greater purpose. These trials refine our faith, teach us dependence on Him, and shape us into stronger believers. God does not desire for us to remain in lack forever. Rather, He calls us to grow, learn, and trust in His provision. If you are struggling, remember, you are not being abandoned. You are being prepared for something greater. God's ways may be difficult to understand, but those who trust Him will see His perfect plan unfold in time. Hold on to faith, and in His perfect timing, His purpose for you will be revealed.